Hello and welcome back to another episode of Project Peak Performance. Today, me and Rob are going to break down our last guest, Ben Coomber from Awesome Supplements. He was the last guest on Friday, and he came on and he spoke all about the supplement business that he's got. But what was really interesting to me was what happened after the supplement talk. And we started to break down the reasons why we should be looking at supplements and certainly looking at the balance of our life to achieve greatness. So like I said, it's me and Rob. We're going to sit down now and try and break down what we took away from this episode, what gold pieces you guys could take away and start implementing into your lives today. So without further ado, we're going to jump straight into it. And I'm going to ask Rob, mate, what was the best thing you took out of the whole podcast? After listening to it, what was the gold you picked up?
Like the wording he had, there's a couple of bits which uh was it about genius thinking,
Yeah.
and also have a CEO day. I know, and it sounds a little bit different, but a lot of clients I speak to from a coaching perspective, you can try and encourage those days.
Mhm.
And I think because we've got a normality of it being like, oh, working on your business and not in your business, everyone just it's a bit wishy-washy. So I think like a CEO day where you think about strategy. Like a lot of our clients, they use the terminology off the back of Mark we've had in a podcast,
Yeah.
driving a ship or steering a ship days they have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I loved that some of the wording that Ben used, and then also really like what we're all about at Project P Performance. He was a great guest to have because he encapsulated all of it. It's not around supplements. It's not about being working hard and being an alpha male and
Yeah.
doing that. Is he talked about, no, actually I've gone through that, and actually this is the reasons why I don't think that's the best way to live your life. So if that answers your question, Dave.
No, mate, it does, to be fair. It reminded me a little bit of when we tried to redefine the man up and what people are going through right now, what the meaning behind that is, and what we believe that it should be, with a fresh set of eyes on it. And yeah, he went in. To be honest, I mean, you mentioned it just before we started recording as well. When you see guests on, one of the things that you got to understand is when we get guests on, we don't want it to be a sales script for their companies where they're just trying to bang on and sell you products. And to be honest, we actually turn away a good few guests because of that. And we can clearly see that that's their agenda, to just try and sell their services to you. And we're not interested in that. And that's what was amazing about Ben. The downside is I bet we could probably get him on, Rob, to talk more about the actual nutrition side of things that he was doing,
Yeah.
but we kind of let it run. And where we found ourselves was then going on from this nutritional side of things, explaining the reasons why we, should certainly be looking into nutrition. What parts of nutrition are we failing at? What could we be doing? And then noticing the difference is between the sayings of, well, when we go back to cavemen days and they didn't eat this, that, and the other. And it's like, yeah, I've always thought this. What do you mean, the guys that died at 30 years of age is the average
Mm.
thing? Is that what you're trying to, appeal to and go towards? And what we found was he ended up coming out of the supplements explaining the real reasons why it's important to look at it, and the benefits of looking after yourself from a nutritional point of view. But then we started to go into sleep routines and how to effectively run businesses. And that's one great thing about this pod, I think, that we get on these guests that are not just trying to sell you something. We're very cautious about picking the ones out who have actually achieved something in life. So
Mm.
because you've got a company doing one thing isn't that interesting to us. We want some stories that can come out and really help our listeners and viewers to create better lives and businesses for themselves. And one thing that I saw come right out of this was balance. But what came before the balance was what I see as probably one of the biggest issues in the world today. And it's kind of a lack of direction and
Mm.
finding, finding a balance in where we should be in life. And I'd like to see if we can maybe talk about that a little bit as well, a little bit today. So for me, he spoke about burnout, how it happened to him, how he found himself as he was navigating the first stages or the first few years of business. He's found all the problems, guys. I'm not going to ruin it for you. I want you to go back and listen to it, but I'm going to, try and lead you into this a little bit of what to expect. he tells you his whole story of where his vision was going, the problems that he found within this vision. Obsession was a great word that came out of it, and then trying to redefine this obsession. And yeah, what did you take out of the second part, Rob? You know, because obviously you're sat there, your main job, if people are not fully aware, is you're an elite performance coach for an IT company, and your job is to go out there and help businesses and individuals create better lives and businesses for themselves and the surrounding areas. So it's like, it's got to be really on point for you, that
Mm.
part of the conversation. So, you know, what was the bit you took away from it on that side?
And that's what I enjoyed about it, because it was nodding on quite a few bits. Like, and it's the first bit is like him actually openly saying he's got a supplements company. He's got a managing director of that company, and he's still got three. He's about to take on four coaches. And I loved the work. I loved what he said. Basically, was um, where was it? His business grew by 70% in the last year when he got out of the way of it.
Yeah, mate, that's
And
amazing.
like that was it. And he was talking about, recruit people to find. And Ian and him had it saying recruit people to find who are better than you. And Ian said that great one. What was it? Where he just said no one could do this better than me. Yeah,
Yeah,
but what happened? Like there are people out there that can actually do it better than you. So
better.
like,
Yeah, that was it.
and I see that a lot. I see the most successful small business owners that I work with decide that they can't do it all.
Mhm.
They understand their skill set, they remove their ego, they find people to take those. And the key part is I'm not going to recruit someone and then still try and muddle in on that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've got one at the moment. I've got a client at the moment. I'm more than happy to talk about it. Been with us for a couple of years.
Mhm.
Frustrating sometimes he has, as he says, no excuses. And he always talks about excuses, and there's always a fucking core values excuse on the wall.
Yeah,
And if you're listening to this, well, we talk about this all the time, but he's recruited a marketeer person. Her job is to make the marketeer better.
yes,
The issue you find at the moment is the friction is that he's still controlling what the message is.
correct.
So she's got all these ideas, and
Yeah.
actually, I always say like, what's the stoppage in the funnel? And
Mhm.
it's like because you're now having to review everything that she does and then try and make tweaks from it. So friction, the bit that Ben was using, a lot of friction, like working out what the friction is in your business and how to alleviate that, whether that's with yourself, finding people, changing the strategy, getting a coaching,
Yeah.
is a real fundamental part. If you are listening, you're a business owner thinking, "Oh, I'm getting full of friction in my business." It's like, yeah, it's all your fault. It's all your problem. So how are you going to release it? Because you are the person running it.
Yeah. I love that, mate, when it comes to friction. I think he defined it the way that I heard it was, if I can get this right now, and I don't want to ruin his words because it was beautiful the way he said it. I think it was historically I'd always come from a place of fear. And just point that word fear there. And it changed to come from a place of love and abundance, I think he said.
Yeah,
An abundance. And I think this goes into a few things. Certainly, if we're operating from a place of fear, then we're operating from the wrong side of our nervous system
yeah,
because we've got two sides. We've got our parasympathetic nerve. We've basically got rest and digest or fight and flight is probably the easiest way for people to understand it. And when we're in fight and flight, our options are limited. What we're going to do is limited. It's very fear based, and it's very hard to get out of. But when we come from a place of curiosity, love, and abundance, and no fear, we're able to make these much better decisions. And I think what I'm finding within this, I was going to say what we're trying to say then, I can't talk for you, but what I'm finding in this is a lot of business owners don't know the direction. Secondly, they're fearful that nobody else can do it but them. And if you hold that as a belief and not just a thought, you're never ever getting out of this rat race. Like ever. It only ever comes once you can allow the reins to be gone and allow the team to start flourishing and make it on their own. Otherwise, you're always going to be there. And that's got to be, I think, probably the biggest problem in business that I see today.
Mm.
You've got directors who want to work all the time. Of course, I like working all the time. I love doing different things, but I don't want to be a slave to it, and I don't want it to control my life. So, what, how does that show up? Obviously, you've mentioned the one client. How does that show up as like a broad spectrum across the clients? What things are you seeing, Rob, that people are doing that you think or believe could potentially be coming from a fear base and not this love, abundance, and curiosity of the world?
I think uh, when you look at there's two types of thinking when it comes to this as well. I think I mentioned on the pod before. So um, if you are in a fear-based uh, situation or fear-based environment, you don't actually think. Your brain is in a different part thinking to actually if you are in a place of abundance, love, calm, safety.
Yeah,
So if you are in a high stressed environment or you're making yourself in a high stressed environment, so you're working too many hours, like Ben and Ian alluded to.
yeah,
Ben was saying after 40 hours you're unproductive. So those 10 hours, you're just doing it for the sake of doing it.
yeah,
And actually, if you were to not burn yourself out, sleep well, look after your body, that's the only time you're ever going to get into a critical state of thinking.
yeah,
So you're like and you'd think you could sit there and think you're thinking, but you're thinking in a fear-based setting. So your brain is actually not in. So for me, every revelation I've always had and every great idea I've always come from has always come from actually when I'm out running.
yeah,
I'm relaxed, I'm running, I can really think about stuff. I'm away from distractions. I've got a road ahead in front of me. There's a lot of synergy with that.
yeah,
I get up a hill and I'm not in a fear-based environment. So it allows my brain to go off and think about the deeper stuff. And that's the reason why I like to run longer, because I find the greatest things come from those parts.
yeah,
But if you're stuck in a, like Ian was saying, in an office environment, no natural light,
yeah,
drinking 20 cups of coffee, smoking or not eating properly, you're never going to get into that optimal thinking. So for me, I find the biggest spectrum of clients who succeed have got a great relationship with growth of their body,
yeah,
whether that's gym, running, doing stuff and achievement out of it. If you aren't and you're a couch potato, you're never going to grow your business. It's never going to work for you
yeah,
because there's not an internal synergy with who you are as an individual to the business you're trying to create.
yeah. No, mate, it makes perfect sense. It does. It makes perfect sense.
So like Ben was saying about you mentioned about it. He said listen to the friction. That's what I loved about it. Listen to the friction. Listen, um, and uh, the obsession part, like health came from a place of worth for me. I think that's what he was saying about.
Yeah,
So again, he was talking about a session, and both experienced it. You've experienced it in the podcast you talked about, and I was in the same thing. Although it wasn't my company, I was still a sales and lettings director. I still had 20 members of staff I had to look after, and I was obsessed. Like it came an addiction for me to be in at 7 o'clock and leave by 11 o'clock, and that's what I was told that was all about life.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And
So forward, isn't it?
until like you burn out, until you have those breakdown moments, until you realize it's that. And even though I'm still in a working environment, I have that balance more than I've ever had before. And spending an hour with my children having breakfast is by far greater than just getting to the office for the sake of getting to the office early and
Yeah,
sitting in traffic when you don't need to be there.
yeah. Makes perfect
But
sense.
like you're saying, if friction's there, if you're controlling, you need to be in a morning meeting every day because you have to be in there, then you'll don't moan if you're stuck in traffic and don't moan if your kids say they never see you. That's your own problem you've got to deal with.
Yeah,
Um, so I was only speaking to someone at the weekend and I was talking about you have to re-empower yourself in everything that you do.
yeah,
So the moment you blame everyone else out there, you're disempowering yourself. So if you blame um, your work, your teams, your lifestyle, your time. I don't have enough time.
yeah,
Like you're disempowering yourself from that. So, like Ben was saying, he said I had looked at committing to stuff in my diary,
Yeah.
taking back that part to it and getting into that state of flow.
Yeah.
Um,
I love that. I
yeah,
think one of
so
the things, sorry, Rob, go on, what were you saying?
no, I'm just saying, like, I'm just reading through the notes of the stuff. I had bags of notes. So
Yeah, the same way. I've got two A4 pages here. It's actually hard to try and navigate through it. I've pulled that much out. But what I'm thinking here as we're talking, it's like me and you both speak to business owners on a daily basis, and we see the same sort of things. And I was like, gonna just going back then to what it was like when I was sat there and I was kind of lost. I thought I was winning. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what to do. And it's like I look at how I was working. I was working more hours than anybody else. I don't know how many hours that was, but let's say the average working week is 40 hours. I was probably doing 60 as a minimum. And in all honesty, now in hindsight, looking back, if I was to utilize my time again, I think I could do it in much less time and be much more effective by looking after myself. And when it comes to looking after myself, here's the big thing. I didn't know what a good diet actually looked like. I thought I did. I really thought that I did. And an average diet for me back then would look a little bit like this. It would look like in the morning, I'd wake up, I'd have a couple of pieces of toast, maybe a glass of orange juice and a brew. I would then go into the office at about 11 o'clock, I'd have a cup of tea, maybe a chocolate bar. 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock comes, you go to Sainsbury's or whatever the supermarket is near you, get yourself the meal deal, a packet of crisps, sandwich, bottle of water because it was being good. I'd come off the Coca-Cola because that's really bad for you. And then I'd come home at night time and we'd have something like maybe a chili or a spaghetti bolognese or something exotic because we didn't really cook in like British foods. I don't know what British foods are, in all honesty. But so it'd be something like you'd make an Italian or you'd try and make an Indian or something else. And it'd be loaded with carb. I mean, I look back now at my diet and I'm like, oh my God, it is no wonder I didn't have the capacity to deal with a lot of this stuff. I was drinking every night. I was drinking like 4 pints a night minimum. I remember saying this, which then affected my sleep quality. So I'm like, I'm coming into this arena, if you like. The way I'm looking at it like it now, I'm like, I'm coming into this gladiator arena and I'm stood next to Russell Crowe and he's got all his armor on. He's been to sleep. He's had a great diet. He's had this. I'm looking at myself here, skinny, fucking pot-bellied pig because I'm drinking too much. My eyes have got bags under him. I've got no sleep. I'm lethargic. I've got no energy. And I'm like, and I'm trying to sort shit out. No wonder it didn't work. On the same token, to go along with that, how I managed to create these businesses now in hindsight is fucking beyond me, mate, because I absolutely muddled my way through it. Now I'm looking back. On top of that, I didn't trust anyone. I didn't trust nobody could do it better than me. So what that meant is I'd hire people and then I'd sit with them until I felt that they either had what I wanted out of them or they'd be gone. Never ever did I give anyone free rein to do things. What I found with that is I spent my time putting my own fires out everywhere. Nobody could help me. It literally then turned from a thought of it's all on me to it really being all on me because nobody had the power to do anything other than me. And I
mm,
didn't see that. I'm coming into work every single day thinking, how come these haven't done that? How come they've not done this? Oh, you're all shit. No, you've just never let us do it, Dave. You've kept us in this little fear bubble. We're all petrified of saying anything to you in case you sack us. We're petrified of doing anything wrong in case you sack us. We're petrified of speaking up and letting you know in case you sack us. So what happens? We just end up with this environment of shit. Nobody
mm.
likes it, and it's going one way, and it's down. Unless and it soon came. I did end up seeing the light and soon come out of it, but I look back now and it's like all of these things, it's like Groundhog Day. I see it day in, day out with business owners, and it's just happening all the time. And how can we change that cycle? We're trying via doing podcasts like this and trying to let you know our stories. We're not trying to ram this down your throat. We're trying to show you a shiny side of the page, really, of what could be. But how about you? I know you were very similar to this.
I was, yeah. I mean, the initial stages was I couldn't allow anyone to control. Like I couldn't have anyone else speak to my clients because they needed to get me in that
Yeah,
way.
yeah,
Um, and mine was like 7 to 11 most nights. Like I'd work on a Sunday, even on days off, I'd come into the office for the sake of coming to the office.
Yeah.
And there was always this friction in the office, not between my teams, but uh, owners and stuff like that, because of how that sort of stuff was. Um, and it took the loss of Chris to be reflective on life being too short.
Yeah.
And I know it wasn't like you know, he he took death upon himself rather than death coming to him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and then it got me to think like, what is all of this life stuff about? And then I went through the transition on going, right, teams, we're going to go through this process. Like, I'm going to empower you more. But I still had the environments I was working with, and I'll be honest with you, the environments I was working with, the company still thrived on that. We're senior,
Yeah.
we're going to pull you down. So
Hierarchy.
it was, yeah, hierarchy. So I used to have a lot of arguments with one of the owners. Like, he would be a sort of person you'd come in each day and you wouldn't know whether who was coming in.
Yeah.
Was he going to be happy or was he going to be the other side?
Yeah.
And like you look back now, and that's the reason why I power what I do and I enjoy what I do and I champion that part, because you see the sickness that happens. So back to what you're saying about you, the factor that a lot of people need to audit is the stress that they put themselves on every single day.
This is the
And is
friction
it
behind
undue
it.
stress?
Yeah. This
Like
is friction we're
it,
talking about, isn't it, Rob?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. And so like you said, diet food can have a play within that, but also like, are you doing some work just to cause the stress? And also, like, I don't know who wrote a book around it. It was sort of talking about there's someone talking about how we're addicted to stress now.
Yeah.
Like, it can be addictive, like because, and again, like going into a bit deeper, you have to then look at why. Like, did I grow up in a childhood home where everything was chaos? Like that's how I thrived in my environment. So it's for me, I always find when I deal with a lot of business owners, it's not just surface level that we have to change. Like Ben alluded to it, like you have to start to remove your ego out of it and understand your ego. And I talk a lot about like reconnecting back to your inner child is the main thing for you as an owner.
Yeah.
And it sounds a bit like kumbaya, but I don't know. The most successful clients I've worked with have gone through not a, they've gone into more the psychology of themselves as a leader rather than the
So,
business operating.
beautiful. So what does that, so for the listeners who are listening into this now, and we hear a lot about inner child, potentially speaking to a coach, mentor, therapist, even. And I think they all have different, again, feelings that go with them. Some people like therapist. Does that mean that I'm broken and I need to do so? No, 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 no. It's just it's a name for an aid that can help you out. But bringing this back in now, so I want to cover the last two things on this, which are obsession, because that was a big point that we spoke about on this, and coaches. So let's cover off, I think probably the best way to do this is cover off obsession first of all. And then based on the answer to this, let's see how coaches could come into that. So I'd like to ask you a question. Do you think obsession is even healthy at all? What's your thoughts on the word obsession? Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Um, in the framework of what the obsession's about.
Okay.
So, like, if you've got an obsession about being healthy and being cleaner with yourself and looking after yourself,
Mhm.
that's a better obsession to have than the obsession of working too many hours.
Yeah.
So, if you have an obsession about wanting to, but I think Jocko talked about this. There has to be obsession. There's obsession, and then there's uh, extremes.
Yeah.
And there's a fine line to working on riding that wave of what is good obsession and what is too extreme.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, for example, you might have an obsession about sleeping, so you track all your sleeping that lot, but then you might have one time where your friends and family want to go out for a meal, and you have an evening of experience with each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So And you might turn around and say, because of your extreme, that I'm not going to go and do that. And then you're actually forgetting about why we exist in this world and what we're doing. So there has to be, we always come back to it. I think the 80-20 rule, a
Yeah.
session is 80% of the time, the 20% is giving yourself a little bit of a step back from it all and enjoying what you're doing. If that is answer your question.
It kind of does, mate. And I think I'm the same. I think when I hear the word obsession, my initial thought is, okay, obsession is probably a very strong word and it's probably not healthy as a word in my vocabulary. So for me, I think there's better words to attune to positive things and positive thoughts and movements within yourself. Again, I'm 100% aligned with the destination we're going on and everything else. And to be fair, like you said, the same to you. If it's a choice between taking something else off this balance or wheel of life, we've got the trilogies, we've got the wheel of life, the this, that, and the other, and we've got to make sure that we're looking after our slices of pizza here, really. And as long as it's on there, I think, yeah, obsession. The word is probably is what's throwing me here, but I think that we can be really find the high importance and spend a lot of our energy and time on completing a few things that would only if though they allow us to go closer to the eventual goal we're going to end up at. So
Mm.
I believe we really need this dream to start off with. If you don't have a dream, you'll find yourself floating down the river like a log in the Nile, if that makes sense. And it's just going to take you. And it could take you a really nice route, but it could also take you down a treacherous route, which is banging from side to side and over a waterfall at the end of it. And you've got zero control over that if you're just letting it battle you down. So, yeah, I think if direction is where, as long as the direction you're going in, you're taking small steps towards that, yeah, I think it's probably a good thing. Still a bit fuzzy on the word obsession.
I think like well, Ben works on it. Ben said about obsession was he was talking about he's obsessed with his health from a place of worth.
Yes.
So that is good obsession.
Yeah.
So like, you could be obsessed with work, but ultimately why? Why do you have to be obsessed with work?
Where you
To
going?
make more money. Yeah, make more money. Why? What does that going to solve it? Oh, I can have a bigger car and a bigger house. Why?
Yeah.
Because I don't know why. That might be because I've been told that that's the way you've got to go, or because
Yeah.
such and such down the road's got a bigger car and a house, I'm a part of it. Like, but
Yeah.
why? What does it make difference? But if someone said, I want to be obsessed a little bit more with work. Okay, why? Okay, because I want to make sure my children have the lives that they have. Okay, why? It might turn around to actually realize that actually my obsession with work is actually the thing that's going to lose the quality time I'm going to spend with my children. So how
Children.
do I change that? So you could be obsessed. My obsession is to be the best father possible.
Yeah.
Then you reframe it in a different way because your obsession would be time spent with kids. The obsession is to make sure you do things within your work or your career to progress them in the right direction. Like I'm obsessed with work, not to be a detriment to actually what the bigger why is.
Yeah.
My session is to be a great dad.
Love it. Makes perfect sense. So the last question that I've got for you now then is to do with coaches, mentors, and people who are holding out the olive branch to help you out along the way. So you've got, I would imagine your destination in your head is relatively clear of where you're going. So the question is, what does that look like? And what coaches are you currently using or you can foresee them helping you in your journey along the way, and what would those micro bits be that you believe you could do with some help on to take you to that next level?
Great question. So coaching or mentoring can come in different formats. So it doesn't have to be qualified or professional in some ways.
Yeah.
So a mentor could be a great friend or someone who, Dave, like for example, I'd class you as a mentor towards me,
Yeah, vice
right?
versa. We bounce off each
Whenever we have whenever I need to think about something and run some ideas through, I know I can come to you because I know that you're the person that I know with the line with that synergy. You're very open, you throw curveballs in there, and that that's it doesn't have to be transactional in the
Yeah.
form of like I need a coach. And I've said it before. I think people get confused with coaching and mentoring to to a lot extent. So they seem to say, I'm a coach, I will take you to this position and blah, blah. No, that's a mentor. Like mentor the people who've done that role and you use their expertise and their mistakes that they've gone through to help you make sure you don't learn those mistakes. So that's the reason why you would need a mentor on that part. It goes back to that whole ego side to it. It goes back to saying, well, I can do it all. So you're already going to fail if you're not even seeking that. uh, Coaching can come in different formats. So for a coach, for example, and it's a weird one. So runner, for example, I use technology now as a coaching format
Yeah.
because I have runner and runner is a coaching app for me to structure my diary out and my plan out of how I can run my next 50K ultra. It did me for 100 kilometers. So they're actually run by coaches, professional coaches. Some are like, the one's just done the New York Marathon. So the structured plan is they give the ability for them using their expertise, but can do it on a mass scale. So I needed that before. I'd turn up to a race and I run a couple of miles before and just done it. And Kel said, I don't know how you do these marathons, like, because you're just not even training properly for them. When I did ultra, I was like, I need to respect this a bit more. So, I have a digital coaching platform for that I'd use. It gives me my days, my yoga sessions, my gym sessions, what the gym sessions are like. Even when I'm running, it tells me should slow down, speed up,
Yeah.
what miles I should be doing. So much in there. So to enable me to be running, I use technology on that part.
Yeah.
Um, so I think from a from a mental well-being side, I I mean, I've partnered with my partner Kel on our synergy towards that, and she's trained to be a therapist. She's in her final stages of it, and I've learned a lot from her being again another partner within my life that effectively gives me some of the knowledge that she's learning, and we can have those open conversations around it. So we might put on a YouTube about a particular thing that we're looking at, and we'd stop there and talk about it. So so it doesn't have to be it like when I did my TEDx, I got a professional speaking coaching to try and get me to understand that. And that was very tough, but an enjoyable process as well. Um, so it doesn't have to be like my greatest mentor, I'd probably say, is Mark, who we've had on as a podcast host before. Like he's shown me loads within mentoring, within business, and helped me pull myself out. So I would say if you're the key to any coach or mentor is someone who healthily will challenge your views in a good way. My role as a coach, I always say, is your growth is my growth. So I always will champion you to become the best version of yourself. Um, and also people who have either walked a different walk to what you're doing right now to give you advice, or throwing that curveball that you might not have thought about. And the final one is to be the accountability partner. So if you're thinking, do I need a coach? A lot of my clients, I say to them, is that don't cancel the session if you haven't done the work. Those sessions are the most vital ones. I don't want you to turn up and be a tick box saying, yeah, I've done it all, because the deeper level of growth is that if you've done it, we're not pushing hard enough.
Yeah.
Like we're not, it's too easy for you. That's going back to the whole friction. Like you could just pass on to someone else who could do that. So I say to my clients, turn up to those sessions because we can then work out why could we not do the facilitate of this goal? Like,
More
what do we
important.
need that? Yeah, because time constraints. This person was off. I didn't understand this process. Okay, let's reconvene. Let's huddle together and work out how do we then achieve that goal going forward. So, if you're someone listening to this thinking, do I need a coach? If you need a business coach, that's the accountability towards someone who's going to hold you to the goal you're looking to achieve. I'll give you a great one. I had a client over the weekend. He's a part of our core performance program, 18 course program. We've got Iceberg. Beginning of the year, he wrote down a specific number he wanted to hit in a year. Over the weekend, he was like, just hit that figure.
Amazing.
And he'd never done that before. He'd never done the plan or anything like that. And he said to me, this manifestation stuff works, but it has to come with hard work as well with it.
Excellent.
So again, if you're thinking, listening there, thinking, oh, I don't know about coach. If you haven't got a plan already in place and you're just winging it month by month,
Yeah.
you need a coach. If you start projects and never finish them, you need a coach. If you struggle with transacting with your team members, family members, or partners, or stuff like, you need a coach of some sort, or you might need a therapist of some sort to understand that. And if you've got blockers in the form of you get angry because your ego's coming out because you're not there's something that's triggering you in your business or your work life, then I'd probably say, yeah, you do need a coach or a therapist of some sort to help understand why. And then, like, if you want to live the life you've always wanted to live,
Yeah.
then I hope this makes sense. Simon Sinek said something at the weekend, which I watched particularly with Simon Sinek, and he basically said, you can't build trust within your teams by demanding trust. The only way you're ever going to build trust amongst your teams is you ask for support,
Yeah.
because then people then will then see that you're open, you're honest, you're vulnerable,
Yeah.
and then trust then will build. So if that's wrapping up in a particular way, like if you're struggling with trust issues with your teams, again, like these are the people you need. And there's a lot of issues sometimes you have with cognitive bias when you're having your teams, where like if you're battling with your team members, you need someone maybe outside of all of that environment to question some of the stuff you might be doing from a different perspective
Yeah.
that is not close to you, not close to them, not involved in the emotion, but they see from a practical level about what they can do to better themselves. So if that rambling on for 5 minutes helps.
Mate, do you know what? It more than helps. You literally wound up the rest of the podcast then because you've taken away pretty much everything else I was going to say. So no, mate, it really did, and it shows the importance behind it. And I think, it was a great episode last week. If you haven't listened to it already, please go and have a listen to it. And what I'd like to do, I think what would be really interesting, let's see if you can write down in the comments, or if you're part of our Facebook group, please write in there. And what I want to know is, what supplements are you guys taking at the moment? Why are you taking it? Is it working for you? And secondly, on the side of supplements, what coaches have you got into your lives, and how did they make a difference? Now, it could be a positive or a negative. We'd love to hear from you and hear what your what your experience was in both of those things. And yeah, let's see if we can combine a list and see if we can learn anything from that's coming out of that. Guys, thanks again for listening. I've loved this podcast, mate. It's been another great conversation with you, Rob. And we will see you next week. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, guys.